Well, welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us for our Sunday class with Guy Finley. My name is Doug. I'll be the host for this class, and today is February 1st, 2026. If you're new to this, to these talks on Sunday, Guy gives about an hour talk. We'll take about a 5-minute break, and we'll come back for Q&A where you can actually speak directly to Guy if you're on GoToWebinar, or if you're on one of the other Facebook or YouTube, you can write in a question in your chat box, and you can speak with Guy that way. And I do highly recommend, if you do have something, or even something you want to share that's on your heart, do utilize this time for that. That's the time to do it, and to speak directly with Guy. I don't think we have anything more today, so let's bring Guy in and we'll get started. Hi, Guy.
Hi, Doug. Am I in?
You're in for me.
Okay.
Would you like me to read the topic and key lesson?
Yes, please, Doug.
All right. This morning's topic is Awaken the Will of the Divine and Watch Painful Desires Drop Away. And the key lesson reads, give yourself empty things to do, can't fill the emptiness you feel inside. So risk leaving that space empty. Allow it to be filled with something you can't give yourself. Freedom from the fear of feeling empty. All right, I'll hand it to you, Guy.
Thanks, Doug. Hello and welcome to everyone, West Coast, East Coast, in between all the coasts, whatever day or time it is. We're always glad to share this space because we increasingly find within it that there is something that always wants to share its life with us, and that we are always invited into that life, but have to find, if you will, the door. So these talks are always about an entrance, but not an entrance into a place, but rather an entrance into an understanding. An understanding that when it becomes one and the same as your nature, gives you access to a completely different relationship with this world, your life, and with everything in it. Something that can't be described, but that we've been trying now for over, I guess close to 50 years. So I want to start by saying that we're going to begin in one place and we're going to end in the same place. It's a miracle in a way. Those of you who know T.S. Eliot in something called Little Gidding, which was the name of a church somewhere in England, he used that whole journey, that whole story as a kind of a metaphor. And he ends up at the end of that writing something like, we shall not cease from exploration. And in the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. We shall not cease from exploration. And at the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. You know, an idea like that can drive a person kind of crazy. And there are a number of ideas along those lines that we don't immediately relate to this idea that we are the ones we are waiting for in the language of Native Americans. But we run into it time and time again, and we start with this idea that one must lose their life to find it. Now that's a paradox. It's a paradox that runs through all teachings. How do I lose something and find it at the same time? It doesn't make sense to our mind, because our mind is, if you'll excuse me, is that of a bitter barnacle. It's a crustacean. Our mind is one-dimensional. It can't see levels and it doesn't understand scale. And the only way in which a paradox is understood is when you can look into the world where what seems to be irreconcilable opposites aren't seen as opposites at all, because you are overseeing them. They are within you and you understand they are an expression of one world, but not the expression of all worlds, because you're standing in a world where you get it, what it means to lose your life and to find it. That's what we're going to look at together. So let's get you into it nice and early. I really want you, as I always really want you, to stay awake. Sometimes when I'm sitting here getting ready to talk, I feel like my heart feels like a horse race at the gate waiting for the thing to be flung open so that I can bring into the world what it is that I'm being given inwardly in silence and turn it into something that manifested can help other individuals see what it is that that heart is sharing in that moment. So I ask you to stay involved as best you can. Don't leave. So I'll use the first person I, but we're talking about we. I often find too late, I don't know about you, that I have acted against myself. Anybody ever find out too late they have acted against themselves? Or against another, which by the way is one and the same. But the big problem is that I find out I've acted against myself too late. And it never dawns on me after that has happened time and time again that I can't really act against you or against myself. And I certainly can't feel the regret I do, which often follows acting against myself or someone else. If somewhere down the line, in one way or another, something isn't saying to me each time that happens, you know what? That wasn't so good, but you'll do better now that you have that experience. You've learned from this. We talked about this at length yesterday. And so I go, that's great. I've learned from this experience. Except when push comes to shove, out of the mouth comes whatever is punishing or judgmental or cruel to myself or someone else. And the next thing I know, I'm regretting taking that action again. And follows this circle, doesn't it? A certain kind of cycle where basically the mind is saying it's finding a way, I'll do better next time, I'll be different under certain circumstances. And our favorite is it's not entirely my fault, right? It's a no my fault. The devil made me do it is the popular saying. So often are we caught in this sort of wash and rinse cycle that we never get out of the machinery of a mind that creates this repetitive experience. We never really ask ourselves, why in the name of God do we keep repeating this exact same self-defeating behavior? My mind tells me why, but every answer my mind gives me does nothing to release me from the machinery that's engaged when someone or something goes against my will. Am I alone in this? No. And so this cycle goes on and on and on, doesn't it? Engaged, constantly caught up in an endless series of questions we ask ourselves, like, why does this keep happening? Have you ever asked, why does this keep happening to me? And all of the things that go along with those problems where we have at the end, and I really want to stress this for a moment, out of all of these actions that we have taken against ourselves and others, we wind up with a basket full of regrets. And if not a basket full of regrets, then an armload full of assurance that we're in the right and someone else is wrong, and that we had to do what we had to do, because how else would we have gotten through that moment? And I don't want you, as best as possible for you to understand, to be laying somewhere, taking your last few breaths and wondering why in the name of God I'm so full of regret. If you don't understand the nature of regret now, before that time comes, you will not know it, and you will have lived, believe me when I tell you this, for nothing other than to serve the nature that creates the conditions that then you regret being the servant of. So what's this one question that we never ask ourselves? If we honestly observe ourselves in these moments, what's the one question? Put it all together in your mind with me. All right, so I just did what I don't want to do. To put in the words of St. Paul, I just did what I didn't want to do instead of doing what too late I know I should have done. So next time I won't do too late what I should do, because I'll be there to do it when the evil comes that I don't want to do. And then, lo and behold, I have amnesia. I mean, it's true. I'm like some kind of wave of amnesia. And it's not just individual, by the way. Amnesia sweeps over entire populations. A mob is in the hands of of that amnesia. The question is, and it's always tenuous even when it appears, if I'm doing something that I regret doing, acting, saying, buying, if I'm regretting doing that and I continue to regret it, what is going on in that moment where it seems that that action is the only choice I have in that moment? Because I've made 100 million choices in the moment of conflict, and not one of them has brought an end to this conflicted nature. And when that happens, this conflicted nature that I believe I can see now and shouldn't be like that, I then listen to it tell me the next time it happens, Guy, here's what you have to do. And it's not like, here's a suggestion, Guy, I think you should, quietly correct this person. It's like something enters into this body through this mouth and speaks for me that an action which it has decided, and I am complicit with the decision. And I go, yeah, I feel like I have to say that. I feel like I have to let you know that I have to yell at that person or express my displeasure with this person with their shopping cart in my, whatever it might be. I really want to strengthen in your mind that moment, that action is given to us to take. And that's the first thing. I am given an action to take. And the way I know that I'm given an action to take is that I take it and then I regret what I've taken to be myself in that action. What is the nature of that action that I'm given in those moments of a challenge? I'm asking anybody here, what are the actions? Protect myself? Defend myself? Advance myself in some way? Make sure that nobody advances in front of me in some way? Blame someone? We could make a long list, and you would be wise one day to do so, to see, in these moments, I am constantly caught up in something that I believe is I. I believe it's me. Because nothing feels more like me than when me feels like it's got to protect itself from some impending misery or some problem. And by some strange, amazing grace, I'm always there right at the moment of the problem to ensure that the problem doesn't get worse. And maybe the problem doesn't get worse, but the dependency upon that will that appears and uses my name, my I, I'm never free of it. Do you see this with me? So here's what this leads us to. I've never in my life considered, again, I'm using I instead of we. I've never considered once in my life that this will, this powerful, familiar sense of self that is right there like lurch with all of the choices that I need to make, and then the discernment to decide which of these choices is going to end the conflict, I never question whether or not that will is my own. I know you have never questioned that. Addicts at a certain point, really far down the road, begin to question that will because they realize something is willing them, wanting them, telling them choose the drug, choose the substance, that even as they are doing that which they know they ought not do, something in them saying, you know, this is going to hurt you, but they are overwhelmed by the desire inherent in that choice, and the choice glitters and glows with the promise of a pleasure if I'll just accede to its choice. So I lose sight of the fact that the choice is the pain to come, not the pleasure it seems to be. Please? Yes. Which means if I even suspect that's true, that is that me? Is that really I? Would I choose to hurt myself? No, I wouldn't. Would I choose to make my husband, my wife, my children, my pets Would I choose to let somebody see me driving my car with my fist clenched? Would I do anything to damage this world? I wouldn't. I do it every day. One way or another. And the more clear that becomes, and by the way, I want to add that humanity is terrified of even suspecting that what they call themselves, their sense of self, derived from this will that I'm describing, that that's not them. Because who am I without what I desire? Who am I without what I want in the moment to do what? What is it that I always want from the moment? Can anybody venture a guess?
Completion.
I want the end of the feeling of lack, of emptiness, of something missing from my life. That's what I want. I want the end of some pain that I don't recognize as pain because my mind paints the picture of the pleasure, the power, the possession that will obliterate and bring an end to what is so obviously painful to me. I never am aware of the pain. I'm aware of the solution to the pain, given to me by the nature that creates the pain, by the way. You see it? So what are we looking at? On one hand, when I in quote choose, I'm choosing from a will that, if I can be honest, observe it at all, is inseparable from the desire in that moment. What is my will what is your will in any given moment? What is it? My will is what I want. I want you to stop bothering me. I may not say it out loud, but I will enact whatever it's take to escape you, to to do what I need to do so that I'm not disturbed by you. My desire and my will are one thing. And if you want to know whether that's true or not, if you think it's not, just say to yourself, you know what? For one day, I'm going to desire not to blab. I'm going to desire not to say something cruel. For one day, I'm going to desire not to talk to myself. If it's me talking to myself and it's my will that's doing it for one day, for an hour, 10 seconds. My will. I'm not going to think those thoughts about those people. My will. I'm not going to let this resentment come up. My will. If it's my will bringing up the resentment, by God, I can will it away. Can't I? No, I can't. And I'm terrified of that observation. So on one hand, there's a will that's obviously inseparable from the desire of the moment. Transition. A will that is inseparable from the desire of the moment. The desire of the moment is my will in that moment. And it is always seeking one thing, and that is to protect or complete itself as it imagines it must be done in that moment. On the other hand, there is evidence of another deeper order of ourselves that oversees, governs all of life. We talk about it all the time. That sees to this beautiful, ceaseless reconciliation of all of creation. The Creator attends to her creation. And that will is never antithetical to one of the creatures in it, because every last one of those creatures accedes to that will so that it can participate in the revelation of the perfection that created it. So transition, what we call free will is usually what? What do we call free will? It is some form of a reaction that is inseparable from what feels threatened in that moment. So that my will comes out of my reactions. We could say that really the reaction is the basis of my will. Please, I'm asking you to see this. How do I know something's wrong with you? My reaction tells me so. How do I know I shouldn't be like that? My reaction, my judgment of myself tells me I shouldn't be like that. So in those moments, some kind of fear arises. And again, that fear arises because it seems in that moment, if how do I say this to you? If the moment was clean, pure, then whatever is revealed in it would bring out of me a relationship to that moment where if I had to take an action, it would be inherent in the whole of that movement. But all of my actions are post-movement. Aren't they? Yes. Something moves, I saw it, I got it. Not I'm participating, rather I caught you. I saw it. Whether I'm catching you or catching myself makes no difference to this nature, because the minute it catches something, why would it catch it? Because it resists it. It doesn't want it. And whenever this nature, this desire doesn't want something, what's its solution to not wanting something? Wanting something to remedial, to fix what it doesn't want. I mean, the paradox. And so not knowing that it takes place, this desire that appears because the nature that creates it is itself incomplete, constantly measuring itself and coming up short. Gee, I want to stop there for a second. Maybe I can help you see something. Do you judge and blame people because they exceed your expectations? I'm asking. That sounds stupid, doesn't it? No, I judge and sit in resentment for other people because they did not live up to my expectations. Do you judge yourself? Why do I judge myself? Because I'm not living up to my expectations. And I believe somehow or other that the desire I have to fulfill the expectation of myself proves that I am capable of acquiring and becoming what I expect. Have you not noticed yet that it doesn't matter what you acquire or become? You're always still coming up short. It's never enough. It's never enough. Because that's the nature of desire. Christ called it mammon, an insatiable appetite. So without knowing it, in the moment when this desire comes up and I act out this desire, I'm doing what? I'm claiming its sense of lack. When I say I to that desire that's saying you're not enough, you've got to get more, you've got to change this, I am agreeing to identify with a nature that never has enough in the moment to deal with whatever threatens it. So it always has to find something, some thought, some action, that if it could just do that, then it would be delivered from what it lives in fear of. And when I choose, in quotes, secretly complicit, to actualize the will of this desire, we following me? When I do that, that's when I say, that's my choice. That's my decision. And I believe that my decision in that moment is my decision. And one of the ways you can know that this desire has made this choice for you is that when the choice comes up belly up, you're still there defending it. Aren't you? Bring up the second key lesson. I want to get into this before I get too confusing with you. Read along with me, and I know this seems like a kind of a tongue twister. It's not. I'm going to take just a moment to explain it, but it is so important. It really requires our attention. It reads, "The will of a desire doesn't exist without the object it desires to obtain, whereas God's will has no separate object. The will of a desire doesn't exist without the object it desires to obtain." Stop there. What does that mean? Can I have a desire without something desirable? So whatever it is that this will desires, it sees it as other than itself, doesn't it? That's why it's pursuing it. So the will of desire pursues that which will fill it and make it free as it imagines freedom to come. So the will of a desire doesn't exist without the object it desires. You got that much? Whereas God's will has no separate object. Our will makes objects out of everything So something that we want or don't want. And then we believe when we get it, we're happy until the conditions pass, and now we have to desire something new again. Whereas the will of the divine, and you can see this again if you're willing to do it, has no separate object. Does love have a separate object? When you are in love in the moment that you are given, when you're in nature, are you separate from the love you have for that experience? Or is that experience in toto love itself, as best we can describe it? Why? Because it is whole itself. It is reconciling itself, and it is completing itself. Whereas our desires come out of a wreck, and then we make another wreck to free ourselves from the crash of this will that wants what it wants and doesn't get it. Important to understand that divine love has no object apart from subject. Divine love has no object apart from subject. Now, take a nice deep breath, because we're making a transition that will help fill in all of these blanks. I'm going to talk about the 10 Commandments. Remember now, we're talking about this paradox. Lose our life to find it. And we're talking about the fact that we can at least begin to suspect that within us is a will that is not our own. But never does anything feel more like our will than when it is pressing us to do as it requests, so that we can be released from whatever the fear is that, by the way, was born out of that desire to begin with. The 10 Commandments. This is very deep. We are taught from the beginning, one way or the other, and it doesn't matter what your so-called religious base is. We are taught right from the beginning to embrace the commandments, in quotes, as a moral imperative. And that this moral imperative is that we must use our will to obey the will of God. And we see the 10 Commandments or other things that are commanded or told in Scripture, we see them as a moral imperative. You grow up that way. Your mother says to you, don't treat your brother like that. When she just came from the kitchen yelling at your father. Your father says, don't do that, as he stashes a bottle someplace. Somebody tells you, you must tolerate others, and they're a secret racist when they're home by themselves, judging others endlessly. And a constant display of a conflict where on one hand we have this nature, this fallen nature, this desire nature that is always wanting what it wants. It doesn't care what it has to do to get what it wants, to put away what bothers it. On the other hand, we're told, we put on top of this, don't be like that. You're wrong if you feel that way, guy. You should be ashamed of yourself for that selfishness that you just exhibited. Do you not judge yourself exactly that way? I know that you do. And you're driven mad. You're driven mad because on one hand you are conditioned to accept as your own the will of a desire that is endlessly incomplete and that fears this lack of itself and always looks to fill itself with something outside. But then the 10 Commandments say, don't covet anything. Don't want anything, because if you want, you're a goner. And it's not just that. Christian scripture, we're told, lose your life to find it. Sell all. Well, I can sell almost everything, but not everything. Lose what? Okay, I'll lose this. And we come up with all of these compromises because the conflict within ourselves is rampant. I'm not supposed to be what I am. And what I am is someone who wants. That's what I am. You can lie till the cows come home. I am someone who wants, and then you fill in the blank. Even if it's I am someone who wants God. It's no different. Why do you want God? Because I'm in pain. Why are you in pain? Because you have no God. Because your God, without knowing it, as is true of all of humanity as it remains asleep, is mammon, is this desire, is the will of this desire. So the 10 Commandments, basically, say, you know what, Guy, I want you to struggle until you drop this body with a nature that is obeying its own command. You have to overcome this. You must overcome desire. That's spiritual. If you're a spiritual person, you overcome desire. Don't you? How you doing with that desire? And then listen to the paradox. I desire to overcome desire. Why? Because I've imagined if I can get rid of desire and free myself from desire, overcome it, then I'll be free. So I'm still at war. Because something in me still doesn't want to be what is the crux of this present personality, because it's at odds with everything I think I should not be. So I'm so confused at this point, I don't know what to do with myself. Do you see the struggle? Ever so briefly, there have been things in my life, especially when I was younger, not so much now, although you'll see with gradual intensity, with a certain clarity, that to enact anything that nature, that will of desire enacts, is to really, it will eventually bring up remorse in you, not judgment, but the remorse that you were more interested in freeing yourself than you were with what you did to someone in order to escape the influence around them. But let me not get too distracted. So here I am, and this nature, this desire, creates to escape its inherent emptiness. Now, it may not seem to you that's true, but when somebody says something to you or does something around you, and it brings up that reaction, why does it bring up that resistance? Why does it bring up that resistance the way it does? Because I had filled myself with some kind of expectation or demand that you would be a certain way. And when you didn't fulfill the expectation, I was suddenly emptied of whatever sense of self had been derived from it. Can you see that? When you don't do what you're supposed to do, it threatens me. You want to know why there's violence in these reactions? Because you're actually threatened by someone that you see as disobeying the law. And I am the law. And my only recourse is to restore law. And how do I restore law? By punishing you. Or by punishing myself. Why? Because I think I'm actually the law. But the law I live from is, you do what I say to do, and then I'll be what I am. And if you keep doing what you're supposed to do, I'll be happy with you. This is our whole relationship to the world. True teaching hidden in the commandments is designed to awaken in an individual the awareness that they indeed live under the influence of an invisible will. Because how much more clear can it be when it says, love your neighbor as yourself, love your I can't. I have to pretend. I got to whomp it up. I go to my neighbors and I'm sitting there and it's the most boring place I've ever been in my life. And I got to sit there like I'm enjoying it. Why? Because that's what a good person does. And then a good person accedes to the demands of another person and you make them codependent. Why? Because that's what love does. It gives freely. Bull! So that my whole nature is caught up in this terrible conflict of tides between this impulse at the lowest level to attend to myself and satisfy myself as best I can, and at the same time something saying that that's not right, don't be like that. Bring up the third key lesson, would you please, Eric? Read along with me. The 10 Commandments expose the little realized fact that we are not free simply because we can choose, but rather we choose according to the nature we serve. I'm going to read that sentence again. The 10 Commandments exposes the little realized fact that we are not free simply because we can choose, but rather we choose according to the nature we serve. You see that your choices are an extension of the nature that you're serving, and then you see that your choices are to put yourself first, or at least your first action is to put yourself first. But then a thought comes and says, well, that's not what Christ would do. Christ wouldn't do that. Christ would do this. So there I am, and now I'm trying to act out what I think Christ would do, and I'm crucified by a nature that doesn't understand you can't pretend to be something. You are something or you're not. Where do you think people go bananas? Do they use that expression anymore? Nuts? What do you think drives people off of the edge? It's when this conflict reaches a pitch. And it reaches that pitch, it doesn't know what to do, and it has to let go of all of that pressure born of the conflict of these opposites between what I am at the root in terms of this desire nature and the thing that says you shouldn't be like that, they should be this, and no, I shouldn't, whatever, and they're like that, and then boom. And I go take somebody's life. I become a fanatic. Not just a religious, political, across the board climb. I become a fanatic because the pain is so great. And the only release I have is to completely throw myself, by the way, not into what is good, but into the will that what is telling me is good. And then I can identify with it and blame anyone that's in my way in that moment. Do you see it with me? So in this insight is an understanding. And it's part of an admonition of Christ. Again, lose your life to find it. What did Christ say? In innumerable ways. Deny yourself, pick up the cross. Deny yourself. So here's where we are. Well, listen, that's the moral imperative. I must deny myself. So I deny myself. And I live in endless resentment that I have to deny myself. You can lie again till the cows come home. At some point, I don't want to deny myself. I want what I want. Even parents, people, they drive themselves crazy with guilt. A parent, do you think a parent going, oh yeah, I make all these sacrifices, beautiful, beautiful. Parent doesn't do that. At some point, no matter what it is, you're taking care of somebody that's done, whatever it is, at a certain point, you just don't want to do it anymore. Hear it all the time. See it in yourself. Then you hate yourself. I know people personally who live in constant self-judgment because they don't know why that nature in them wish somebody would go ahead and die so they could be free of the problem involved in that relationship. There's a horror in that, isn't it? If you've ever been there. Wishing that someone would just get out of the way so you could go on with what desire has decided you should have, which is not to be troubled and bothered. And so what we do is we bite the bullet, but we don't do what we want to do out of the good of doing it. We do it out of the good of what we think we will be if we act that out. I'll slow down because it's a lot to take in, and I know that it is. I don't ever want to say too much too quick. Still has to be said, and it will be said, but I don't want you to fall into the very thing that I'm talking about, which is judging yourself. Because that's what we do. For years and years and years, I judged myself about a particular incident when I was a boy with my brother. I even begged forgiveness, thinking that that was the way to get through it. And then one day you understand that what you did, you didn't do. It isn't that you don't have to be responsible, but you recognize that all of that guilt, all of that pain, whatever it is, was produced by a choice made for you in that moment that you had no idea was being made. And when it finally becomes clear to you that something is choosing for you, not just the things in your past, but the things you do presently, then you begin to have another relationship with that nature. And that's what Christ was talking about. He wasn't saying resist that nature. He was saying deny that nature. And what does it mean to deny that nature? To withdraw your identification from it. That's what it means to deny it. We'll touch on this more deeply in a moment. So deny yourself, 10 Commandments. These teachings take on a new kind of meaning when you start to understand they were never saying you must use your will to achieve. You must use your will to reach heaven. Christ himself said the kingdom of heaven can't be taken by force. Basically, you can't use your will to find heaven. That's ludicrous. And yet that's exactly what everybody's doing, including the will of abnegation. I'm going to give this up and I'm going to give that up. The whole time, Have you ever not, there was a great story about in a monastery about this monk went to the abbot and he was saying, so-and-so, Willie over there, he's just the most amazing guy. He's given up everything. It's fantastic. And the abbot says, have you ever watched him? How he fondles that one button on his shirt and he never lets go of it. We don't see where it is that we're attached to things because we think that when we've given up and I'm identified with what I've given up. When you really give something up, it's the end of identification, not something that you find yourself being good because you gave it up. So, am I starting to connect this idea of 10 commands now? So let's bring up the fourth key lesson, please, Eric. Read along. Our true spiritual task is not to use our will to obey God, but rather by the grace of God to see how we are already being ruled by the will of unconscious desire and to deny it, and with whatever parts of us that are so dependent on it for our familiar sense of self. Our spiritual task is not to use our will to obey God, but rather by the grace of God to see how we are already ruled by an unconscious desire and continuing it, to deny it, along with whatever parts of ourselves depend on it for our familiar sense of self. What's my most familiar sense of self? Have you really examined what, if you're not just sort of like zoning out, what is the most powerful, familiar sense of self that I have? It's when I really want something and when I really don't want something. That's the dominant sense of self. I'm getting there, I'm not getting there. Always in opposites, which desire is. So let me keep going. Next phase. To deny ourselves means to deny this habitual identification with this lowest level of ourself. That helps us understand, if we can, and clarify yet something else from Scripture. St. Paul said, "Come out from amongst them, touch not the unclean thing." Now, even though Paul was a converted Jew, his name was Saul before he became Paul, even though he's a converted Jew, the traditional meaning of that teaching, as is with the commandments and everything else, that it means use your will to not participate in this world. Obey the will of the word that you're told is true and ignore what you talk to yourself about. He's saying, not touch not what is unclean. In the old world, it would have been, don't hang out with people who aren't part of your tradition. They were considered unclean. Don't eat these kind of foods on these kind of days. That would be considered unclean. So when he said, touch not what is unclean, he was referring essentially to this idea that there are people and places apart from what you have been told are good, and don't do that. But that isn't the meaning at all of what was, that was the in levels and scale, that was the meaning at that level. But the real meaning of it, and I even went and decided to look all of this up through the old words. Come out from amongst them, touch not the unclean thing. Who or what is them? Come out from amongst them. Again, the teaching, it seems to be that it's the people and the places apart from the tradition. But them, the real meaning of them is this crowd of impulses, of these conditioned reactions, of these inner voices, of these inherited psychological forces, and that they combined are the unclean thing. That nature is the unclean thing. Come out from that nature and all of the eyes, the legion that exists within it. That's what we're told to come out from. And how do we come out from that nature? We have to learn what it means, again, to start suspecting, as best we're able to, that everything we have ever known to do or be depends on this relationship with them. That's my relationship. I sit and worry about money, worry about health, worry about what she's doing. Why aren't they doing that? I mean, everybody's business. Do you know why? Because it keeps this nature of desire filled with something that it hopes will bring an end to its pain, even as it's busy causing pain in a world it doesn't belong in. And that's what the mind does. If you ever, one day as you learn not just to, like sit and try to watch your mind, but as one day separation is present enough, you can observe yourself, you see it. When this pressure arises, it's because something is out of order. And what's out of order is that I don't have what I need to be free in this moment. So to restore order, I have to imagine what I need. And then my choices, in quote, will be to go get that so that when I get it, I'll be whole again. Except there's a problem with the plan, isn't there, as we're evidencing. The key lesson talks about being delivered from emptiness, from the fear of it. What we discover is that our a willingness to use those words, to surrender ourselves to this, to what? How would I know? Did you ever marvel? I know I did. It's back in the day. How in the name of heaven did that man, that woman, how did that teacher know that? Because the minute I heard it, I go, well, that's true. Where was I? I was in the same world. I was driving the same streets, eating the same food from the supermarket. Where in the name of why? I guess I must have been blind. Because now that I see it clearly, or at least to that extent. Why don't I see these things? And the answer is I don't see these things because my eyes are always on the object of a desire. So I can't see, to use the words, not what's right in front of me. I can't see what affronts me all the time. Because as it's doing it, I'm looking where it's saying I need to look to get rid of the threat inherent in desire not being satisfied with the moment. And it can't be satisfied with the moment. That's not its nature. So let me keep going because I'm going to run out of time. We cannot set ourselves free. Now, I know my students here are going, yeah, that's right, but what are you thinking about all the time? So I'm trying to hash it out. Aren't you? What am I trying to hash out? What I have to do, who you have to be, what I need to be, how I need to talk to you, and not talk about this, never talk about that, so that my mind is this mishmash of all kinds of ill-shaped ideas, all of which are being considered by a nature creating the condition it's trying to resolve, and then wanting to choose from its best ideas how to escape what it's created over and over and over again. Yesterday's key lesson, I think it was, words are useless. Why not throw them out? So you start to realize, well, there may be some intelligence in that. Because desire is telling me what to do to be saved from my pain. And I identify with what it tells me to do, and I take that action, and then one way or another, and again, I want to say it, whether it's a week, a month, a year, or on my deathbed, I regret it. Why in the name of God did I not see that sooner? Don't get to that place. Ask to see sooner than later. And what is it that I'm asking to see? What do the 10 Commandments say? Thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not. All the commandments in the negative. Why? Because the teachers knew that if you tried to live up to the commandments, you would see there's not a chance in hell that you can do that. I can't do it. But I don't actually know that I can't do it because I always have tomorrow where I'll be able to do it. Isn't that true? Tomorrow, I won't be tormented tomorrow. No, the teaching is now. What did that great rabbi say? If I'm not for myself, who will be? But if I'm just for myself, what am I? If not now, when? He's actually brought the whole of the 10 Commandments into a simple idea that right now I need to see that I know what is good, but I can't do what is good. And the reason I can't do what is good is because something keeps telling me the good is almost there. And that's the lie. The thing that says the good is coming, that I'll be good, the time will be good, is part of how desire hides itself behind the temptation of becoming. Of a time when. So this is why everything that I've been saying leads to this idea. I can only be free to whatever extent is possible in the moments as I understand that there is no moment in which this nature isn't bubbling up something, some desire, telling me what I have to do to be saved from an emptiness that only exists because of its identification. Do you ever wonder why your mind returns to this? How many of you know, we don't want anybody to know, how often our mind returns to certain themes? Now, the beauty of it is that if we could, we won't do that here, but we used to do it in class. Maybe one day we'll risk some of it. If everybody said what their mind always returns to and they weren't afraid of being judged, let alone speaking what they're afraid of knowing about themselves, you would see something phenomenal. I have been returning to that theme for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, returning to that theme. Now, why do I return to that theme? Because there's something in me that hasn't resolved whatever it is that theme tells me is causing this sense of emptiness. So I return to that theme to release myself, to be delivered from whatever that dark thing is that's down there, that I just need to bring it into my life, bring a little light into that, whatever it is. That's what thinking says it's doing. You can bring a little light into that thing. Thinking can't bring light in. Thinking is darkness itself. So here I am, and I'm always trying it's coming back, it's coming back, it's coming back. And then one day, as part of this talk, God willing, you will see, as I get to it, it's coming back again. Here it comes. You have an enemy? Why do you think about your enemies? Why? I'm asking you to examine it. I'll tell you why. Because it's not you thinking about them. It's the nature that first created them because they didn't fit the paradigm of whatever you said a perfect person would be like. And the minute that it had that paradigm, it had a system to judge by, and it derives its identity out of that judgment. So I sit in judgment of others because it gives me that sense of self that desire must have in order to live. So if I actually start to understand this, that something's calling me back, that desire calls me back. Now, maybe it calls me back into the past. It does that too, doesn't it? Calls me to the past to figure stuff out. But desire also projects a future, doesn't it? In fact, that's part of why think about it. That's why it's drawn to the past. Because if I can get it cleared up in the past, the future will be great. But if I start to understand, and this is a side note, that desire creates psychological time. Desire doesn't exist without thoughts, without images. All psychological time is the manifestation of a body of desire endlessly seeking to become free of itself. So if I even suspect that desire has come and it wants me to do this again. It wants me to say this again. It wants me to go there again. That in the moment I recognize it, instead of looking to the promise of the end of whatever it is that brought that up, I have to examine myself. Wait a minute. What pain is this trying to save me from? Look, if I'm drawn to something and I'm afraid not to do it, or I'm incapable of going along those lines, something is adamant, isn't it? Isn't there something adamant in your life when you feel that way? I'm going to have to meet that moment by understanding and meeting that desire, that pain, by simply, silently saying, I will not be that. I will not be that. I will not be that greed. I will not be that fear. I will not be that resentment. I will not fill myself again with something that has never answered the emptiness. You could make a long list. I will not be the judge. You can't live a relationship with a person that upsets you without the judge sitting there and advocating in the moment that the problem of the pain you have is because of the nature of that person. You can't have it. I will not be that judge. Now, please understand me. This is not saying that you will be righteous by saying, I will not be that. What it is saying is that I will not be that identity. I will not take my sense of self from that desire. Because that's what desire requires, is that you identify with it. Because as you identify with it, it's got you. The trap is sprung. The fox blames the trap, says Blake. Why? Because the minute I identify with a desire, I'm already identified with what it has told me I need to be free. I'm told with what I need to be free from, and I'm right there making that same circle of self. How about this? I won't be that indignant righteousness. You ever get upset with people on the road? The 11th commandment, thou shalt not have road rage. Do you know why the humanity is possessed by rage now? That it never says is rage. It's always an idiot that causes rage in you, isn't it? Failing to see that rage is idiocy personified. Well, if I say, no, you know what, I get this. I can at least see the wisdom in it. I know that my suffering is because I become that. And I don't know that I become that which is not I. I don't know that I become the handmaiden, the servant of a desire. I don't know that I do that because I think the desire is there to serve me. Try to see this. This is the paradox. You think desire is there to serve you. What a fool. Desire doesn't serve you. Real desire, like for instance, I desire water. I desire water. Why? Because my body's telling me I have a lack of water. There's no sense of self that goes, I'm great because I love water. Or I hate you because you're withholding water from me. There's just this natural give and take in natural desire. But unnatural desire is all about what I have to have in order to be me or to be free of whatever it is that I blame for my pain. And I'm saying that that has to become so clear that you recognize, and now I will not be, now listen, I will not be that resistance. When you desire something, desire starts with not wanting. Think about what you want. Why do you want that? Because I don't want to feel afraid. Why do I want him, her, or this? Because I don't want to be without him, her, or this. So that these things that seem to be, again, paradoxically separate, they're not separate at all. And we make this full circle. We start to say, wait a minute, oh, so that's what it means. Lose my life to find it. Lose my life doesn't mean like, where did it go? Lose means to deliberately separate from. Lose means to exchange one order of being for another. That's what lose means. And when that exchange is made, you can't make it through an act of will. It is made for you when you stop being the instrument of an unconscious will. Because then you are in the will of that which has shown you that, and the will of which fills you when you no longer try to free yourself from whatever that emptiness is that drives this desire. Are you still following me? So this is a key. The order of denying oneself, this order we're talking about, is not resistance to whatever state or whatever temporary form may have overtaken it. That's so critical. Because this is what we do. I resist desire. That makes me a good person. No, that makes you a crazy person. Fenelon said, a rock beneath the surface of the earth still weighs the same amount. VH used to say, try and hold a basketball underwater. you will wear yourself out. Why? Because the nature of that air-filled basketball is to rise. The nature of this is to rise. But we can't meet it with resistance. We have to meet it with realization, which is what this talk is about. Let's bring up the fourth of these key lessons, please, Eric. Nice deep breath. Let all this sink in. Blessed are those who agree to drink from the bitter cup, because as it empties to reveal its secret sweetness, the whole of life takes on that quality. Blessed are those who agree to drink from the bitter cup, because as it empties to reveal its secret sweetness, the whole of life takes on that quality. Christ said, would that this cup could pass from my lips. What was he saying? This cup is bitter. But I understand that I'm given this cup because if I will drink from it in spite of its bitterness, I will be given something that I cannot give myself and that cannot be obtained or realized in any other way. So when we drink from this cup of denying ourselves, which is a very personal interior work. I'm so reticent sometimes to use words. They're so charged. How do you say to somebody, listen, denying yourself is what you do all the time now. You deny all the time why you're angry, because you always have a reason for it. Reasons for being angry is the denial of the nature that's angry. Isn't it, please? Yes. Reasons for why I have to be self-centered is the denial of selfishness. If I wasn't selfish, I wouldn't need reasons for why I should or shouldn't be that way. That nature is those things, not you. It is those things. And the awareness of that nature is the beginning of the end of our presently conditioned unconscious complicity with it. Because that's the problem. It has no authority. We are duped into identifying with it because it promises, as goes the story in the Garden of Eden, that if you go ahead and do this, you'll have the whole thing. You'll be a God unto yourself. It'll be marvelous because you'll have everything that you've ever desired. And by the way, that soul already had everything that could be desired, but knowledge created something apart from itself, and now it sought to fill itself through what it imagined it didn't have, which is the problem. Grand summary. You ready? It's a kind of a recap of yesterday, but I'm going to go through it. So how do we do this? How do I deny myself, pick up this cross, come out from amongst them? Sorry, I'm looking at a thought. What was the first step? Agree to be what you are made to be. Agree to be what you are made to be. And what is it that I am made to be? The intersection where the will of the divine creator engages the will of his earthly creations. That's what I am made to be, as is every creation. The intersection where the will of the divine creator engages the will of its earthly creation. And in that relationship, a circulation, in that circulation, the growth and the perfection of creation as the Creator has endowed it to fulfill that purpose. Do agree to be what you're made to be. I am not made to be anxious. What is that passage? The Spirit of God has no fear. I'm not made to be anxious. And yet every time something comes along and it says, well, what about this and what about that? Are you not seized by a fear or an anxiety? And that because you think the fear and the anxiety are yours. They're yours because you claim them, but they belong to a nature that must have fear and anxiety so that it can seek a solution to itself, which is what desire does. Desire creates the nightmare and then says, here's how to wake up, and brings you into another dream. Agree to be what you are made to be. This intersection, this place where what is pure and true and timeless pours into what is in time and requires that nature to complete it. so that it is never empty, rather that it is always being emptied and filled at the same time, which is the true experience of real life. Second part of grand summary, and connected to agree to be what you're made to be. Do what you're meant to do. How could it be that I'm meant to do what undoes me? Doesn't it feel like you're meant to do and say what you have to say and do? Doesn't it? I got to do that, yes or no? How can I be meant to do something that hurts me? Because I don't see it hurts me. Why? Because I'm looking at it through the eyes of a nature that says if you don't, you got a problem. If I agree to be what I'm made to be, I'm present. If I'm present, I see something at that moment is saying, here's what you're meant to do. Remain present and actualize that timeless relationship. Because if I remain present, I actualize that relationship between the will of heaven and the will of earth, if I'm present to it. And then I can't be deceived by a lower nature. And to do that, I have to do what? I have to deny myself. I have to deny the nature that's always identified with, well, this feels kind of empty. I don't get this business sitting here quietly. I hate it. What hates quiet? Noise. Do what you're meant to do. Actualize the relationship that you've been given. And finally, you will share in the peace of a perfect accord. Agree to be what you're made to be. Agree to do what you are meant to do, given to do, and share in the peace of that accord. And what is the peace of that accord? It's a nature that seeks nothing outside of itself to be whole. So we close where we started. Lose your life to find it. Do you have a new understanding of that idea? Yes. And one last word, because it's critical, especially for students. There's another passage, I think it's St. Paul, but I'm not sure. Be doers of the word. Doers, not thinkers of the word, not hopers of the word, not carriers of the word, not spreaders of the word, doers of the word. And I've described to you what being a doer of the word is. Because I think that part goes on and says, for faith without acts is as empty as a tin bell or something like that. What are the acts of faith? It's the understanding, the conviction, I get it, I see it. I can't be it, but I see it, and I will do everything that I can to be the instrument of that divine will that's capable of recognizing how that imposter will, that imposter sense of self comes in, claims me, carries me off, and then blames someone or something else for the ill that it did. No, I won't do that anymore. And by the way, when I do get carried off, which I will always be, I will succumb. It's inevitable, this succumbing to that will. It's so habitual. It's so convincing. Who would ever believe that you could be convinced to act against yourself by a sensation that's hurting you as it passes through you? Am I not being acted in at that very moment? Here's the sensation of fear. I'm being acted against myself in that moment, and I take that as the impetus to free myself. You have the facts now. Go to work. Let's take a break. We'll come back.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Now it's time for our Q&A with Guy. Again, if you're new here and you're on GoToWebinar and you'd like to speak directly with Guy, there's a little hand icon that looks like this. You can click on that and that'll bring you in the queue. And so I'd ask anyone on GoToWebinar to go ahead and raise your hand and we'll get a queue going there. I have 4 written questions right now. And then if you're on another platform, go ahead and write your questions in the chat box. So with that said, let's bring Guy in and we'll get started. Hi, Guy.
Hi,
You want
Doug.
to get ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll start with one of our written questions here. And this is from Erica. Erica says, I would love to get your insight on my current situation. My husband of 14 years, who I love, is diagnosed with major depressive disorder and is on several medications. They work to an extent, but as a side effect, any and all intimacy and connection between us is gone. Attempts to talk to him do not end well as he is so quick to escalate and avoid conflict and lashes out if I press the issue. For a while, all I have been able to feel regarding him is hurt and resentment. I've been trying to stay conscious and focused on my personal goals I have, but my human heart feels so much pain and frustration. How do I discern whether the situation is for or against my spiritual growth?
Well, I can answer the last part of your question immediately. I'll start with sort of a macrocosmic view and bring it down to a personal one. Of existence. A moment of existence to be some separate of creation in time. In time. It is a perfect relationship between that which is heavenly, full of light, expansive, creative, as it interacts with that which is reclusive, withdrawing, gravity-fed, dark. And it is in that ceaseless interaction of these divine energies that something altogether that is neither one or the other is brought forth, and not only created, but each time it is brought forth in yet another iteration, it is perfected further so that every iteration of creation is the revelation of the Creator. That means there's no moment that isn't the perfection of spiritual life. At every level. If you look at these massive clouds of gas that they show you in the universe, the ego cloud, these fantastic cosmos, and you see these places, if you've ever seen them through the Webb telescope, here's a place somewhere seemingly out there, and by the way, it's not out there. You are made in the image of that. There's this galaxy, and it's creating suns. It's extraordinary. And every sun that is created eventually yields itself for the purpose of strewing out into the universe elements that other instruments, other manifestations will require in order to pursue and perfect the purpose of their existence. So you see this massive, in infinite immensity expressing itself through a constant state of perfecting itself. That is what we are meant to be. So that the collision of your universe with your husband's change is, in fact, all that you need in one respect to begin to understand what is required in your next stage, if you will, in your spiritual growth. My heart fills with the words, or at least the expressions, the feelings, but to be able to put them in words that make sense to human beings, it's just about impossible. You know, I can tell by what you've written, that you don't want to be someone who hurts your husband. No sane, God-filled human being would ever say, I want to hurt someone. We don't even say it as lost as we are. We say, I don't want to hurt someone, but it's mandatory that I do this, and if it hurts you, that's too bad. But I tell you that there is a light inside of your heart that dwells in the darkness of this desire nature, of this body of this legion. It dwells in the midst of it, doesn't know anything about that light. That every time that legion, that I acts, and it always acts in favor of what it calls itself, which is always to separate itself, that there is a moment where that nature can see the right thing to do here. I don't care what it costs me, is to lay myself down. I just can't do it. The right thing for me to do is to suffer the pain and not make you suffer it. That's the right thing for me to do. Not because I'm a spiritual, righteous, religious human being. That's hogwash. But because God itself, Himself, is right there saying, lay it down, give it up. Because that's the right thing to do. And there's no mind in the world, no matter how much knowledge it has, that can justify doing what it calls right when it is saying, no, this feels wrong, I can't go along with that. It's still the right thing to do. And you have to stay with it as best you understand that. And if it becomes too much, it becomes too much. And if you explode, you explode. And then you start over, you do the right thing again, which is to lay that down, to deny that, to not be that. Please, God, I don't want to be that. Don't name what that is. I don't want to be that. I don't want to do that. And I know that I do that which I don't want to do because something in me makes me do what I don't want. I know all of that, and I have to stay right there in the middle of it. Because if you do, you'll begin to understand that there's another world that isn't made up of you and your husband, that isn't made up of you and the people you love and you and the people that you don't love, and how you love someone and the next moment you don't, because suddenly they bring out of you that which you blame them for. There's another world where all of that is blended together in a perfect, ceaseless reconciliation of all of those conditions. And you are intended to live at once in that world. So all of these things that are circulating, these problems, this conflict with husband, wife, with friends, whatever it is. Because if it wasn't with your husband, it would be with something else. What a difficult situation. I'm not just downplaying that at all. But everybody lives with somebody, even if they live with themselves. I'm a constant disappointment to myself, aren't you? I make myself angry. Don't you make yourself angry if you're far enough to see that no one is doing it to you? So instead of I will this and I will that, no, I will not. That's the will. Not the will of the desire, but the will of God, which says, if you will lay this down, you will be given something. If you will lose that, you will find something. And there's no other way that that can happen. So I'm not offering consolation here. There is none. What I am doing is trying to encourage you to be as present as you can, to see where it is that pain pushes you over the top. That's the thing, isn't it? It's pain seems to push you over the top. Well, what if there was a world in which pain can't push you over the top? Instead, pain is taught by the realization of what it belongs to, and then you stop trying to overcome it, and instead you bring that whole moment into the hands of God where it belongs. Not God you imagine, not a morality you hope to achieve, but the fact of that relationship. That's about the best that I can answer that question. Patricia's sitting here, Doug. I think we'll take Patricia.
Guy answered a question today in his talk, and I love it. I'm sure a lot of you do, when he takes scripture and he looks up words and he tells you a more inner meaning of the scripture. And so many horrors have been done and people misunderstanding scripture. And there's a thing with the Muslim religion that says kill the infidel.
Infidel.
I don't know.
Yeah. That's fine. We got it.
And people have asked me, well, what about that? And he said it today. And when Christ said, come
Come out from, not St. Paul, come out from amongst them.
among them. This is an inner infidel that you're.
The inner infidel, yes.
Yes.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Because, so Sufis are the religion of love, and that's Muslim, and it's just the lower, so many horrors have been done through the name of religion and keeping up with scripture. It's just our whole lack of misunderstanding. So I appreciated that, guy.
Good.
Do you have someone else there?
Nope.
Okay, so let's go to another written question, then we'll go to some James and a couple others in the queue. So here's the next written question. It comes from a YouTube clip last week, and the person asks, the role of an aspirant is to die to oneself. Apparently something you said in the clip. And he said, I'm afraid of letting go. I can't seem to get the peace. My family doesn't understand. They always try to pull me back. And now it's like I'm trying to get rid of everyone and asking them to leave. I know my soul needs to awaken, but I seem to get stopped at every level.
Please don't take this as being anything other than the truth, and I'll explain it. You can't get stopped unless you get started. And you can't get started unless you have a destination. And when you see the destination of being an aspirant or a godly man, a Christ woman, a person of the divine, when you see that the idea of a distance between yourself and the kingdom of heaven is an illusion of a nature that's trying to find it in its own image. This is why a certain amount of understanding is not just mandatory to help, if you will, sow the soil, to till the soil, but it must be not just seeded with new understanding. It has to be tended to. I said this yesterday. I can't be anything other than I am right now as I'm sitting here talking to you. And so if my mind is judging my words, if my mind is looking at my face through whatever imagery it produces and wondering if it looks wise or patient, if a reaction is running through me saying, you know what, you need to slow your roll, because all of that conversation, all of that dialogue is superfluous to the moment and why I'm in it. But when it's understood that it is revealing me to myself and that I am made to be the body of revelation, then that revelation is taking place all the time and it's never not taking place. It's fantastic to even consider that everything was created so that you could, as a human being, be the place where the revelation of that union is realized. Because when you witness that, you are a part of what you witness. And then there's no place to go. There's nothing to try to do. This is the big lie. This is the big lie. Just be what you are. But to be what you are means to see what you are as you are being given what you're being given. So seeing myself means here this comes. I see it coming. Here comes that desire. Here comes that anger. Here comes that fear. I'm there. I'm the silence into which all of this enters. Not because I'm trying to be silent, but because I'm trying to be present to the whole of the moment. So nothing enters into that silence unannounced. That's the beauty of silence. And if I'm aware of all that's passing to and through me, then that awareness decides, well, this is worthwhile, that's not. I don't have to sit and choose. That intelligence chooses for me. And then I remain innocent but not because I'm innocent, but because innocence is clearing the ground moment to moment and purifying my relationship with everything that is taking place inside of me. Let's go on, Doug.
Thank you for that, Guy. Let's go next to James in the queue here. Katie, will you unmute James for me, please? Thank you.
All right. Hi, Guy. You're looking good for the being in Florida. Is it agreeing with you?
I think it is, James. How are you?
All right. So my question is, if I understand what you were saying, an unnatural desire is guaranteed dissatisfaction.
No, let's try it again, James.
Okay.
Desire is dissatisfaction.
Right. Okay.
There's a difference. We look at desire as the path to ending dissatisfaction. But you can't have a desire that doesn't start without dissatisfaction. You can't love one and despise the other. That's what Christ was talking about. And if I see that with great clarity, that here comes this desire, I want to feel safe and secure, so I'm going to revisit this. Here comes this pain, I want to get rid of that enemy by resolving it through some action. In the moment that the mind starts down that path, to recognize that that path is not to clear and free myself, it is to further ensnare me in an identity that's produced by that mind seeking that sense of self. Then I will not go there. Not because I don't want to. Everything wants to go there. I will not say that, not because I'm smart and righteous, but because I know if I say that, I am being the voice of something that first victimized me and then judged someone else for it. So I see that. Seeing ends it, James. It ends all of the mental conversation.
Right on. Thank you. Very much appreciated.
You're welcome, James. Persist with your work, James.
All right, we'll go to another written question here from YouTube. And the person says, you said in this clip, why is it that when I wake up, my mind wakens me to a problem? I'm sick of it. It's almost like I can't help it. I was quite ill and also found out I had a brain problem, a cavernoma. The minute I wake up, it's like my poor soul is saying, back here again? I start shouting, which I can't control, not sure what to do about it. It's almost like my soul is shocked to be back here again. I'm at my wit's end. Please don't judge me.
I have no interest in judging you. Sounds to me like you've judged yourself pretty well. And so that you understand this, and I hope that you can, it's not the soul that cries out for being a captive. The soul can't be made a captive of anything. What we're a captive of is a nature that has divided itself up into what it wants and what it doesn't want. A nature that's decided this is how it should be, therefore it can't be like that. So here I am, and I'm dealing, if I am, and just so you know, I am too, dealing with certain circumstances that are mortal. And if they're mortal, if there's some systemic problem of some kind, you tell me, what good does it do wishing that it weren't that way? What's gained by not wanting? And I'll tell you what's gained by not wanting. The nature that doesn't want it is sustained and given its life breath through every part of the resistance it feels. And it's that pain that's shouting, it's not you. It's that pain that tries to find control by blaming a world that it says is out of control. The world isn't out of control. Of course it is at one level. But the world that I hate for being out of control is the nature of hatred that produced that world I'm looking at. You have to understand, we're never not looking in a mirror. When you see that you're never not looking in a mirror, you stop judging the mirror and you stop hating what appears in it, and you begin to take a position inwardly where you recognize, there's what's in the mirror, here's what I see in the mirror, and then there is a me that sees the mirror and what is reflected in me at the same time. And then the whole conflict comes to an end as it's meant to. On we go, Doug. And by the way, I hope Mr. YouTube person who commented on this video, I hope you attend to this talk today. So, because it was answered in the talk.
All right, let's go next to Laura in the queue. Laura?
Hi, Doug and Guy. Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. Guy, good to talk to you. I am practicing keeping my awareness to be able to communicate effectively. I think that this, this work and this is high stakes for my approval seeking, authority abdicating, risk avoidant nature. My God. So this is what I wanted to bring today. The way that when you speak always to sort of the fact that one has to be able to differentiate that this is not you, notice this, it's not you. And I'm wondering if you could help me clarify or this. So I was experiencing many specific, like say Legion members, right? A very specific feeling of this unconscious nature. And then I could, because it had to be I was dualistic in the way I was experiencing. But now it seems after the thought had dropped into my head, what is the thinker, which was just so incredible. Now I'm experiencing I'm not different from these things. Like the big revelation this week was I am not just the rushee, the victim of rushing. I am the rusher. And with that, there is such a wonderful fullness of love that it is not loving to rush oneself, but to take the time that is needed to listen to life. And
Laura?
Laura? Yes.
Laura, let me stop you for a minute. In time, if you persist with your work, which in one way I suspect you have a certain kind of right warrior in you. Only you will know when the time comes and everything's telling you to flee, that you realize I am not that fear, I am not that anxiety, I'm not that worry that somehow I'm going to miss the mark. But what you need to see, Laura, is that there's a part of you that just loves drama. You need to hear how the tone of your voice changes when you are describing something, and then it brings up this sensation. And then you identify with that sensation, and then it brings up another one, and you identify with that. And what is an actor other than someone or something that takes on the persona of another? And we take on this persona, Laura. One minute I'm anxious, I'm in the persona of an anxious person trying to get across what I want to say because I believe I have to get across that. And then I get to the end of that, and now I take on the persona of someone who understands that. And it just plays itself out and plays itself out. Laura, if you want to make real changes in your life, forget all of the descriptions that you have and simply watch Laura come onto stage, watch Laura as she's on stage, and as you watch her, you will know, I can't be that. I can't be on stage. I can't be this person who knows this love. If a person who actually understands what love is would never say, I know love. Ever. Ever. You meet somebody say, I know God, I know Christ. They don't know anything. Because when you know something is sacred, there is a sacred silence to it. There is a very gossamer thread that exists between the individual who's been touched by something that is love. And they would never threaten that thread by identifying or saying that somehow or that is their love. It's nonsense. And your work is this gradual dispelling of this persona that's so prevalent. We develop these personas, Laura, to deal with what we fear. There is no persona a person is identified with that wasn't brought into manifestation by an unconscious nature in order to let it get its way. It learns how to be soothing or calming. It learns how to be sweet and demure. That persona learns how to do that so it can get what it wants. And then there's the persona that's afraid of everything. And so it's quick to judge. It's always defensive. It's always explaining. And I take on each one of these identities like a field of flowers takes on whatever the shadow is that passes over it. And I think I'm every one of you're none of those things. And that's the task. Not to try to become something or understand something, but rather see that something in us never stops trying to understand because it wants to become something. Let that sit with you for a while, Laura, and we'll talk again. On we go.
All right, Guy, we have one more in the queue. We have Chris in the queue at the foundation and one more written question. I just want to say to everybody here that Friday night at 5 p.m. Pacific, we study these groups, this topic as students, and you can come and join us. These are very valuable. Every Friday, we take the Sunday talk. So everybody who's here is welcome to join. Spend an hour looking at this talk a little more deeply, and do some work on your own, and you might bring something to that discussion on Friday. So you'll get a reminder about that too. So we will go to, it says, it's Chris first. So go ahead, Kate, thanks.
Good. Good afternoon, Guy.
Chrissy.
One sentence in the key lesson number 3 really stood out to me when you said we choose according to the nature
That we serve.
we serve. Right. You know, a sleeping human being has no idea the nature that it's serving, but you know, as a person begins to do this work, we have an opportunity in any disturbance, in any moment, to ask myself, what am I serving in this moment? And, you know, if there's a inner commotion, which there often is, I can sit in the emptiness by just seeing what is going on inside of me. And to your talks recently, take no action, but just to bear the nature that I'm serving in that moment. And it also reminded me of something you've said in the past, my situation is myself. Then all the responsibility of my state falls on me. And there's nothing to do outside of me. And so is our work. So I just wanted to say that.
So let me share something with you that might enhance your vision, your understanding. It isn't really that a person sits in emptiness. In the moments where the disturbance comes, what we call emptiness is the absence of the usual dialogue, the absence of the usual reaction. Because if I'm present, it can't pull off the act. And when I'm present and it doesn't pull off the act, I call that emptiness, but it's not really emptiness. The moment is full of the light of God, full of the revelation that's revealing the act that I was about to take on. And that's a very important distinction. People say, I'm empty, I'm empty. You're not empty. What you are is empty of a former relationship because it's being replaced by a new relationship. And there's always a time, a gap, if you will, a space between that intersection. So important, but that's all.
Yes, thank you, Guy.
All right, Guy, I guess we'll end with this question from Jordan. Okay?
Yeah,
He's
good.
Okay.
I'm waiting to hear from Jordan.
Jordan says, can Guy elaborate on karma yoga? as I find it nearly impossible to see how the spiritual path can hold my goals and not be against them. As Anthony DeMello said, renounce nothing. You can keep everything, only get rid of your attachment. But then I'm attached to being unattached. Ugh.
Ugh. Everybody wants to go to heaven. Nobody wants to die. I'm not a judge of other men and women who proclaim to be teachers. I don't care what they do. I'm sorry that they do some of the things they do because they snare the unwary individuals. You love promises. You love promises. God doesn't promise, He delivers. Desire promises and never delivers. And desire, in some instances, creates people, places, conditions, phrases that you hear. Yes, it's okay. You can have your Rolex watch and you can have all of the stuff that you have. It's okay. Just give up your attachment to these things. King Solomon, in all of his glory, was one of the wealthiest people to ever live on the planet, but he had a relationship with God because God was his first relationship and all else followed it. And in the end, he had remorse for what he was and did because of what his wealth and position provided for him. You can't renounce attachments, but you can certainly see how painful it is to have them. Then it's not you renouncing them, it is intelligence itself that won't participate in a punishment that it believes leads to pleasure. And that's my answer, Jordan. And that's also goodbye.